Across the dark side of Earth's orbit, a cloaked alien ship drifted silently among the stars. Its hull shimmered like liquid glass, invisible to human eyes. Inside, a single figure sat before glowing screens. Zirin, an intelligence officer from the Valerian Dominion, one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. His mission was simple: observe the humans and report their weaknesses. The Dominion believed Earth was a primitive world, full of emotion and conflict. They saw humans as noisy, unpredictable, and fragile, an easy species to dominate. Zirin agreed. At least he did at first. Every day he watched human broadcasts. News channels filled with stories of war, protests, and corruption. Governments arguing. People fighting each other. To Zirin it was proof of weakness. They destroy their own world, he recorded in his mission log. Their minds are ruled by fear and anger. They are a species destined to fall. He sent his report to command and leaned back in his chair, confident his superiors would soon order an invasion. But humans had a strange way of surprising him. The next day, Zirin watched footage of a massive hurricane tearing across one of Earth's continents. Buildings collapsed, floods swept through cities, and people screamed in panic. He expected chaos, selfishness, survival instincts, but instead he saw something else. Firefighters ran into collapsing buildings. Soldiers carried children through the rising floodwaters. Strangers formed human chains to pull others to safety. It didn't make sense. In the Dominion, weakness was despised. If someone fell behind, they were left to die. But here, these fragile creatures risked everything for others, even those they didn't know. Zirin frowned. Illogical, he whispered. Completely illogical. Still, he sent another report, this time with less certainty in his tone. Humans are emotional to the point of madness. They value lives that do not benefit them. This is inefficient, yet strangely persistent. As the days passed, he continued to watch. He studied human wars, expecting proof of their savagery. He saw soldiers running into gunfire, not for orders but to protect their friends. He read about medics treating the wounded while under attack. And again he saw that same pattern, humans risking themselves for others. Why? He muttered again and again. Why do they care so much? Then one night something strange happened. A faint distress signal blinked across his sensors. It wasn't human at first glance. It came from orbit far above Earth. Curious, Zirin adjusted his scanners. The source was an international research station, one of humanity's orbital outposts. It was burning. An explosion had torn through one side of the station. Fire and debris floated into the void. Zirin magnified his view. He saw humans in bulky space suits, scientists and engineers, scrambling to save others still trapped inside. One figure was shouting commands, guiding a damaged escape pod toward a docking bay. Zirin listened through intercepted radio chatter. Oxygen falling. We're losing pressure. Leave the station. It's going to blow. Not yet, there are still people inside. Zirin froze. His fingers hovered over the record button. Every instinct told him these humans were fools. In the Dominion, no one would risk their life to save another. Only strength mattered. Only survival. Yet these humans refused to leave. Minutes later, one of the station modules exploded. A burst of flame and metal ripped through the void. Zirin flinched. His sensors screamed with heat and debris readings. When the smoke cleared, he saw one of the rescue pods tumbling away, damaged but alive. 3 humans had made it. The rest hadn't. Zirin sat there in silence, staring at the broken station. He could still hear the human voices through the static. We lost them. We tried. And then something unexpected, a voice quiet but firm. They didn't die running away. They died saving others. That's what matters. Zirin leaned closer to his console. His breathing slowed. Something in those words felt heavy. Important. He rewound the recording and listened again. They died saving others. His hand trembled slightly as he opened his mission log. The cursor blinked, waiting for his next report. But for a long time he couldn't type anything. Finally he wrote. Observation number 47. Humans display a form of courage that defies reason. They protect each other even when survival is impossible. This is not weakness. He stared at that line for several seconds, then closed the file. Through the viewing glass, Earth glowed below, blue, fragile, beautiful. For the first time, Zirin didn't see a target. He saw something he couldn't quite understand, a world filled with strange, fearless hearts. He leaned back in his chair and whispered, almost to himself, why would a weak species risk their lives for strangers? The ship's computer gave no answer. The stars outside stayed silent. But deep in his mind, a thought began to grow, a thought that would change everything he believed. He opened his recorder again, and began speaking in a softer tone. Report 48, observation continues. But something about humans does not fit the data. I must keep watching. Outside, Earth turned slowly beneath him, unaware that somewhere above an alien spy was beginning to question everything he'd been taught. And somewhere in the depths of space, the first shadow of an unexpected war was already moving toward Earth. The void around Earth burned with streaks of light. Ships exploded like dying stars, scattering debris that glowed against the planet's blue curve. The first Valerian assault had been repelled, but it was only the beginning. Inside his battered ship, Zirin struggled to stay conscious. Warning lights painted the cockpit red. His hull was cracked, energy reserves near zero and oxygen leaking slowly into space. Yet through the haze of pain he smiled faintly. The humans had fought back. Against all odds they had stood. He'd seen their ships, small, crude, underpowered, but fearless. They charged the Valerian dreadnoughts like wolves attacking giants. And for the first time in his life, Zirin had felt something his people never understood. Oh! The comms unit crackled. A voice, calm, firm, cut through the static. Unidentified craft, this is Commander Reyes of the Terran Defense Fleet. Identify yourself or we'll assume you're hostile. Zirin coughed, his voice hoarse. Name? Zirin. Former agent of the Valerian Dominion. I'm here to help. There was a pause. Then a female voice broke in, urgent. Reyes, it's him. He's the one who warned us. Dr. Lena Carter. Get him clearance now, she ordered. And for God's sake, someone get a repair team ready. That ship's about to fall apart. Moments later, Zirin's ship was caught in a tractor beam and pulled toward Earth's orbital defense platform Aegis Station. As his craft docked, medical teams rushed in. Humans swarmed around his vessel, prying open the hatch. He blinked as the bright lights hit him. The air felt strange, warmer than what his species was used to. Then he saw her, Lena, standing in front of him, wearing a dark uniform with the Terran crest. She smiled faintly. You're lucky you made it back. Zirin managed a weak chuckle. Luck, or stubbornness? I'm still learning the difference. She laughed softly, then her tone turned serious. You saved thousands of lives. But the next wave will be bigger. Command says the Valerians are regrouping beyond Mars. If they hit again, they'll come with everything. Zirin nodded grimly. They will. The Dominion never retreats twice. The next fleet will include dreadnoughts and orbital disruptors. They'll scorch your atmosphere before landing troops. Lena crossed her arms. Then we need to hit them first. In the war room of Aegis Station, holograms flickered with orbital maps, energy signatures and tactical grids. Human officers argued in sharp voices, but when Zirin entered, the room fell silent. A Valerian standing among humans, it was unthinkable. Yet Lena stepped forward. He's not the enemy, she said firmly. He's the reason we're still alive. The commander eyed Zirin warily. Fine. Then let's hear his plan. Zirin studied the map. His claw traced a line between Mars and Jupiter. Here. This asteroid belt is where they'll regroup. Their disruptors need 30 minutes to charge before firing. If you strike during that window, you can cripple them before they're ready. We don't have the ships for a direct assault, Reyes said. Even with your intel, they'll outgun us 10-1. Zirin looked around the table. Then don't fight like soldiers. Fight like humans. The officers exchanged confused looks. You adapt, he continued. You think differently. When everything should fail, you find a way. That's what they don't understand about you. A slow grin spread across Commander Reyes's face. You're saying we hit them with chaos. Exactly, Zirin said. Turn the battlefield into something unpredictable. That's your greatest weapon. The next hours blurred into preparation. Human engineers worked beside Zirin, modifying drones and warheads with stolen Valerian code. Fighters were repainted with radar-reflective plating, and stealth bombers loaded with EMP charges. Lena stayed by his side, coordinating communication arrays and deciphering Valerian encryption systems. At one point, she looked at him and asked quietly, You're risking everything. You know your people will kill you for this. He hesitated, then answered softly, I already died the moment I saw what they were willing to destroy. This is my new life. When the second invasion began, the entire solar system felt it. The stars beyond Mars erupted in light. The Valerian Grand Fleet had arrived, hundreds of warships, their hulls black and glistening like the shell of a cosmic insect. Their engines burned white-blue, tearing through the void toward Earth. On Aegis Station, alarms blared. Enemy fleet entering sensor range. They're deploying orbital disruptors. Commander Reyes gave the order. All Terran forces, launch the counterstrike. Operation Eclipse is go. From the moon, hidden silos opened. From Mars, refitted cargo ships, now weaponized, ignited their engines. From Earth, railgun satellites fired massive tungsten slugs into space. The humans struck first. The asteroid belt lit up with explosions. EMP bursts crippled Valerian sensors. Drone swarms filled the void, creating false radar signatures. The Valerians tried to organize, only to find their targeting systems confused and their fleet scattered. And then, from behind a drifting asteroid, Zirin's ship reappeared, patched, armed, and ready. He led a squadron of Terran fighters directly into the Valerian formation. "Focus fire on their command relays," he ordered. His voice echoed through the comms. For the first time, human pilots took orders from an alien. The battle raged for hours. Space itself seemed to tear apart under the fury of both sides. A Valerian dreadnought fired its disruptor beam, missing Earth by a fraction of a degree. The beam grazed the atmosphere, igniting the sky into a temporary aurora that shimmered red and blue. On the ground, people looked up in terror and awe. Back in orbit, Zirin's ship was nearly out of power. A Valerian cruiser locked onto him. He tried to evade, but his engine sputtered. The cruiser fired. At the last second, a Terran fighter, callsign Valkyrie 3, moved between them, taking the blast head-on. The human pilot's last words came through the channel, faint but clear. "For Earth, and for the alien who stood with us." The explosion blinded him. When his vision cleared, the cruiser was gone, destroyed by its own feedback loop. Zirin's throat tightened. That human had died to save him. No logic. No command. Just bravery. Finally, the Valerian flagship, Sovereign, was hit by a coordinated Terran strike. Missiles tore through its shields and a massive explosion rippled through its hull. The once invincible Dominion fleet began to retreat. Humanity had done the impossible. Earth still stood. On Aegis Station, cheers erupted. But Zirin sat silently, watching the last of the Valerian ships jump to warp. Lena approached him. "You did it." He shook his head slowly. "We did it. Humanity proved them wrong." She smiled. "What will you do now?" He looked back toward the stars, toward the empire that had disowned him. "They'll come again. Stronger. Smarter. But I'll be ready. If they want to destroy this world, they'll have to face me first." As Earth rotated below, the dawn began to rise, bright, defiant, alive. The war wasn't over. But something far greater had begun. For the first time in history, a human and an alien stood together not as enemies, but as allies bound by courage. And far beyond the stars, the Dominion took notice. Next, Part 6, The Dominion Strikes Back. The battle for Earth was over, but victory had a price. Orbit was littered with wreckage, twisted metal, shattered drones, and silent ships drifting among the stars. Humanity had survived the first invasion, but the celebration was short-lived. Because deep in the void beyond Pluto, the Valerian Dominion was not retreating. They were rebuilding. Inside the Dominion War Council, anger boiled. The Supreme Chancellor slammed his claws on the table. "One spy, one traitor, and a pack of primitives humiliated our fleet." The other commanders hissed in agreement. Holograms showed images of Terran ships, damaged but defiant. Even with inferior technology, humans had outsmarted them. "Zirin will be hunted," the Chancellor declared coldly. "And Earth will burn." They began construction of a new weapon, the Solar Devourer, a colossal ship powered by a captured Black Star core. Its purpose, to erase Earth from existence. Far above the blue planet, Zirin floated in the quiet control deck of Aegis Station. He watched the sunrise cast light across the Earth's curve. Below him were billions of humans, unaware that a second storm was coming. He had barely slept since the last battle. Every system alert, every long-range signal made his heart pound. Something felt wrong. Lena approached from behind, holding 2 cups of synthetic coffee. "You're still up," she said softly. "You should rest." Zirin turned, exhaustion showing in his eyes. "They'll come again. The Dominion never accepts failure. The moment they recover, they'll strike harder." Lena sighed. "Then we'll be ready." He looked at her, studying the determination on her face. "That's what frightens me," he said. "Your people don't know when to give up. That's why you'll win, and why they'll fear you forever." A sudden alarm cut through their conversation. The station lights flickered red. Long-range scanners detecting something massive beyond Pluto, shouted a technician. Multiple energy readings, no known match. The room froze. Commander Reyes entered, voice sharp. What are we looking at? The technician hesitated, staring at the data. Sir, it's bigger than anything we've seen. It's generating gravity distortions, like a small black hole. Zirin's blood ran cold. He recognized the readings instantly. It's the solar devourer. They've weaponized a collapsed star. Reyes turned to him. How do we stop it? Zirin stared at the display, the weapon slowly approaching the outer solar system. You can't destroy it with brute force. Its core absorbs energy. If you attack directly, you'll feed it. Lena clenched her fists. Then there has to be another way. He nodded slowly. There is, but it will require getting inside the devourer. Hours later, in the hangar of Aegis Station, the sound of engines filled the air. A task force was being assembled, small, fast, and suicidal. 5 stealth ships. 1 chance. Zirin, Lena, and a team of Terran Marines would infiltrate the Devourer's power chamber and destroy the star core manually. As they prepared, Commander Reyes approached Zirin. If this works, you'll save both our worlds, Reyes said quietly. If it fails, then at least they'll know humans didn't die quietly, Zirin finished. They clasped forearms, human and alien, then turned toward the hangar doors. The infiltration ships launched silently into the black, cloaked by adaptive plating. Earth grew smaller behind them, until it was just a blue spark among the stars. The solar devourer appeared before them, a monstrous fortress, thousands of kilometers long. Its hull shimmered with gravitational distortions. Inside, the core pulsed like a heartbeat. We're inside its sensor shadow, Lena whispered. Initiating breach sequence. The stealth pods attached to a maintenance bay. With a soft hiss, the doors opened and the team moved inside. The interior was massive, cold, metallic corridors lit by eerie blue light. Zirin led the way. His claws tapped quietly on the floor. He knew this technology. He had once helped design it. Power chamber ahead, he said. But be careful. The core is unstable. Even one mistake could. Before he could finish, alarms blared. Intruders detected. The ship shook violently as defense drones poured into the corridor. Cover fire, shouted one of the Marines. The hallway exploded in chaos. Energy bolts flew past as humans took cover behind fallen panels. Zirin fired his stolen Valerian rifle, his shots precise and cold. They're closing in, Lena yelled. Zirin grabbed a plasma charge from his belt, set it on the wall and detonated it. The blast opened a hole into the next chamber. Go. Now. They dove through just as the drones were shredded by the explosion. The core chamber was beyond comprehension, a sphere of burning light suspended inside a magnetic cage. It pulsed with waves of gravity so strong the air shimmered. We plant the charges on those stabilizers, Zirin said. Once they're destroyed, the containment field will collapse. The core will consume itself. They moved quickly, placing explosives while the ship trembled around them. But before they could finish, a familiar voice echoed through the speakers. Zirin, hissed the Valerian Chancellor, his tone full of venom. You betrayed your people. You side with vermin who will never understand our power. Zirin looked up, breathing heavily. You fear them, he said quietly. You fear what you can't control. The Chancellor's voice rose. They are chaos. They are disease. And you? They are alive, Zirin interrupted, his eyes burning. Something you will never be. He slammed the final detonator into place. Lena now. She hit the trigger. The charges detonated one by one. The containment field shattered and the star core screamed, a sound like tearing metal and thunder. The ship began collapsing in on itself, gravity twisting violently. We need to move, Lena shouted. They ran for the hangar as the corridors tore apart behind them. Zirin threw himself into the pilot seat of their escape pod. Hold on, he yelled. The pod blasted away from the dying giant. Behind them, the solar devourer imploded, folding in on itself before erupting in a blinding flash. The shockwave spread across the system, shaking every sensor from Mars to Earth. And then, silence. Hours later, their pod drifted in orbit around Earth. Rescue ships soon found them. Zirin opened his eyes slowly. Lena sat beside him, bruised but smiling. You did it, she said softly. He looked at her, the glow of Earth reflecting in his dark eyes. No, he whispered. We did it. Commander Reyes's voice came through the radio. The Devourer's gone. The Dominion's fleet scattered. Earth is safe. For now. But far beyond the solar system, in the black halls of the Dominion's capital, the Chancellor watched the last transmission from Zirin. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. So, they survived. He turned to his generals. Then we'll bring a war that even they cannot survive. The stars outside flickered as hundreds of new ships began construction. On Earth, Zirin stood on a hill beneath a clear sky. For the first time he felt peace. Children ran nearby, laughter echoing through the air. He watched them quietly, a small smile forming. Lena joined him, holding a small device. A new message just came in from Mars Command, she said. They found something strange. Another signal. He frowned. From where? She looked up at the sky. Beyond the edge of our galaxy. Zirin stared into the stars, his expression hardening. Then our story isn't over. The cold silence of space had never bothered Zirin before. He was born into it, trained to feel nothing, to observe without emotion. But now that same silence pressed against him like a weight. 4 days he drifted in orbit above Earth, watching, listening, thinking. His mission had been clear when he began. Collect intelligence, expose human weakness, and prepare the Valerian Dominion for conquest. But now, everything was clouded by doubt. He kept replaying those moments, the humans saving each other from storms, from fire, from death itself. Each time he expected to find logic behind it. But there was none. Humans acted on something deeper, something his kind had lost long ago. In the endless black, his console blinked. A new transmission from Dominion Command. Agent Zirin, your silence is unacceptable. Your final report will decide whether we begin full invasion. Failure to comply will result in replacement. He read the message twice, then deleted it. He couldn't obey. Not yet. Not after what he'd seen. Instead, he began digging deeper, not just into human behavior but into their history. He watched archived footage of Earth's past. Wars, famine, revolutions. Empires rising and falling. Again and again they nearly destroyed themselves, yet they never stopped rebuilding. One clip showed soldiers in muddy trenches, exhausted and wounded, still singing songs in the rain. Another showed firefighters running into burning skyscrapers while everyone else ran out. He saw doctors working through bombings, engineers rebuilding after earthquakes, and children smiling in ruins. Insanity, he whispered. They survive everything. But then, something else caught his attention. Hidden in an old digital archive, Zirin found a speech, a human leader standing before a ruined city. The man's voice trembled, not with fear but determination. We are not made of steel or stone, the man said. We are made of hope. And that makes us impossible to break. Zirin froze. Hope. That word didn't exist in the Valerian language. He leaned back in his chair and whispered it again. Hope. It sounded strange, fragile, and yet powerful. He wrote in his secret log. Observation number 93, humans survive not through strength but through belief. They call it hope. It is illogical yet effective. It keeps them moving when logic says stop. He stopped typing. For the first time in his life, Zirin felt admiration. Hours later his sensors beeped. A fleet signature had appeared, Valerian warships, entering the edge of Earth's solar system. The invasion was no longer a theory. It was happening. Zirin's blood ran cold. He zoomed in, dozens of destroyers, carriers, and command vessels, moving in perfect formation. Their mission: test humanity's defenses, crush resistance, and prepare for occupation. His communicator flashed again. Agent Zirin, transmit coordinates of planetary defense sites immediately. He stared at the message, jaw tightening. His fingers hovered above the console. If he obeyed, millions would die. If he disobeyed, he'd be branded a traitor. For a long time he didn't move. Finally he whispered, no. He shut off the transmission and rerouted his signal system. Instead of sending coordinates to the Dominion, he began transmitting something else: intercepted human communications. He wanted to understand how they were reacting. On Earth, chaos had begun. Astronomers detected strange readings in the outer system. Governments scrambled for answers. Military channels went silent. But amidst the panic, Zirin heard something unexpected: calm voices. Leaders weren't screaming, they were organizing. Scientists shared data across nations. Civilians volunteered for shelters and supply work. He had expected fear. What he heard was unity. One human broadcast came through clearly, a speech from a space fleet commander. If they come for us, we stand together. No matter the cost. Zirin leaned closer, eyes wide. They know we're coming, he whispered. And they're not hiding. He hacked deeper into Earth's defense systems, not to attack but to watch. He saw human engineers working day and night to prepare orbital defenses. He saw old warships pulled from museums, repaired and armed again. And through intercepted personal calls, he heard families saying goodbye, voices trembling but proud. If I don't come back, tell Mom I did my duty. You'll make it back, Dad? Humans always do. Each word hit him harder than the last. Zirin turned off the screen and stared out the viewport. He remembered the Valerian creed drilled into every soldier. Strength is survival. Compassion is death. But humans had rewritten that rule. For them, compassion was survival. Then, something unexpected happened. An encrypted message appeared on his display, not from the Dominion but from Earth. Someone was trying to contact him. He hesitated. No one should be able to detect his ship, but the message was direct. Unidentified vessel in low orbit, we know you are there. We mean no harm. Please respond. It was signed, Dr. Lena Carter, Earth Defense Network. He sat frozen. She had found him. Oh, impossible. Still, curiosity burned. Against every order, Zirin opened a single communication channel. A human face appeared, a woman in her 30s, calm but tired. You've been observing us, she said softly. We know. Your energy readings match no known origin. We don't know who you are, but we know you've been watching. Zirin didn't reply. We intercepted fragments of your transmissions, she continued. They weren't hostile. You sounded conflicted. Her words stunned him. Humans had read his transmissions? His private doubts? If you came to judge us, she said, then see this, we fight for each other. We protect life. That's what makes us human. The signal cut out. Zirin sat still for a long moment, his mind racing. They weren't trying to attack him. They were trying to talk. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, guilt. He was supposed to spy on them. Instead they had shown him trust. That night he looked at Earth again, a small blue world glowing in the dark. They know I'm here, he whispered. And they didn't fire. He sighed and activated his recorder. Observation number 102, humans have detected me. Instead of fear or aggression they offered communication. My people would have destroyed me for less. I cannot report this. They would not understand. He paused, looking out at the stars where the Valerian fleet waited. Command wants me to prepare coordinates for the first strike. But now I wonder, who are the real monsters? The stars outside twinkled cold and distant. And in that moment, Zirin understood something terrifying. If his people reached Earth, it wouldn't be an easy victory. The humans would fight. They would burn the sky if they had to. And they would do it not for conquest but for each other. The alien spy leaned forward, whispering to the planet below. If courage has a home, it's here. Far away the Valerian fleet prepared for war. But in the silence of orbit, one spy was already planning something unthinkable, defiance. The stars shimmered cold and distant, but to Zirin they no longer looked the same. Once, the endless night had felt comforting, predictable, logical, silent. Now, every star seemed to whisper a question he couldn't escape. Who is truly strong? He stared at Earth from his ship's darkened viewport. The humans below had no idea what was coming. Beyond the orbit of Pluto, the Valerian fleet was preparing to strike. Thousands of warships, armed with plasma cannons and gravity lances, were closing in. And in the middle of it all, one alien spy sat frozen, torn between duty and conscience. 4 hours, Zirin paced across the narrow control room. His claws scraped the metal floor softly as the same message blinked across the console again and again. Agent Zirin. Confirm human defense grid locations. Transmission overdue. He ignored it. But the message kept repeating, more urgent each time. The Dominion was getting suspicious. If he didn't respond soon, they would trace his silence and replace him with another agent. He stopped pacing and looked again at Earth. He could see the blue oceans, the thin clouds drifting like threads of silk. He could see lights from cities glowing softly through the night side. To his people, this planet was just another target, another resource-rich world to strip and control. But to him, it had become something else. A mystery. A lesson. A home of courage. Finally he sat down and whispered, "Computer encrypt channel, human frequency, unregistered network." The computer hesitated before replying in its metallic voice. "Warning, unauthorized communication may result in treason charges." Zirin's expression hardened. "Do it." The console hummed. A hidden line opened. the same one Dr. Lena Carter had used to contact him earlier. He took a deep breath and transmitted a single phrase. Earth is in danger. For several seconds nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. Dr. Lena appeared again, tired but calm. She said quietly. I hoped you'd respond. There isn't much time, Zirin said. My fleet is coming. They plan to destroy your orbital defenses first, then demand surrender. If you refuse, they will burn your world. Her expression didn't change. She only nodded slowly as if she had expected it. How long do we have? 2 of your days, maybe less. Lena turned to someone off-screen. Alert the Defense Council. Then she looked back at him. Why are you telling me this? Zirin hesitated. No one had ever asked him why before. Because, he said softly, I thought your kind were weak. But I was wrong. You are something else. I can't let them destroy that. Lena's voice lowered. Then help us. He nodded once. I'll try. And just like that, a bond was formed, fragile, impossible, and completely forbidden. Over the next few hours, Zirin sent encrypted bursts of data, enemy formations, fleet numbers, weapon types. He explained how Valerian plasma shields worked, how their sensors could be confused by electromagnetic storms. The humans worked fast. Lena's voice came through again. We can't match their firepower. But maybe we can surprise them. Zirin allowed himself a small smile. Surprise is something humans excel at. Still, deep down he knew what was coming. The Dominion never showed mercy. Once the fleet arrived, they would not hesitate. 2 days later, the darkness beyond Mars began to move. At first, Earth's satellites picked up faint energy spikes, then clear signals of war. The Valerian fleet had entered the system. Hundreds of ships arranged in a perfect spear formation, heading straight for the blue planet. From his hidden ship, Zirin watched their arrival with a heavy heart. The flagship, VDS Sovereign, dwarfed everything around it. Its silver hull gleamed like a blade in the sunlight. A message came through on his private channel. Agent Zirin, your silence has been noted. You are ordered to transmit now. He stared at the blinking light and didn't move. On Earth, chaos had begun. Sirens wailed across major cities. Every nation united under one defense command. Space fleets scrambled from the moon, from Mars orbit, from hidden stations across the system. Zirin could hear the transmissions flooding the network. Panic mixed with determination. All ships, defensive positions. Maintain orbital formation. If they breach the atmosphere, we fight on the ground. And then one voice cut through the noise, Lena's. To all forces, we have a message from a source that risked everything to warn us. We fight not alone, but for every soul on this planet. Zirin listened silently. They hadn't mentioned his name. They were protecting him. He looked back toward the stars. The Valerian fleet was spreading its wings, deploying assault carriers and drone swarms. The invasion had begun. Then his console blinked, a direct call from the Dominion flagship. His superior's image filled the screen, tall, cold, expressionless. Agent Zirin, the voice boomed. We have traced unauthorized transmissions from your location. Explain. Zirin's claws curled against the chair's arms. I sent nothing of importance. Do not lie to me, spy. We detected human encryption keys in your signal data. He hesitated. Then, for the first time in his life, he looked his superior directly in the eye and said the words no Valerian had ever dared to say. I warned them. The hologram flickered, silent in shock. Then the voice turned venomous. You betrayed your people. You will be hunted, executed, erased. Maybe, Zirin said softly. But at least I'll die for something real. He cut the connection, and the Dominion network went dark. Outside, Earth's defenses lit up the sky. Missiles streaked upward like glowing trails of fire. Energy shields flared. Valerian drones exploded in flashes of light. Zirin joined the chaos, decloaking his ship for the first time. His own weapons charged, targeting the Valerian formation. If you want this world, he growled, you'll have to go through me. He dove into the battle, firing on his own fleet. His small craft weaved between massive warships, blasting sensors and jamming communications. On Earth, the humans saw an unknown ship fighting beside them, fast, precise, deadly. Lena's voice echoed through the command center. Whoever that is, they're on our side. Hours later, the first wave was broken. Dozens of Valerian ships were destroyed and the rest fell back to regroup. Zirin's ship was damaged, his systems failing. Smoke filled the cockpit, lights flickering. But he smiled through the pain. They fought back, he whispered. They actually fought back. He opened one last transmission to Earth. The first attack is over, but they'll return. I'll guide you through what comes next, if I survive. Lena's reply came through the static. You saved lives today, Zirin. You're not our enemy anymore. He closed his eyes, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. No, he murmured. Not anymore. Outside, Earth glowed faintly against the darkness, scarred but standing. And somewhere beyond the wreckage, Zirin's damaged ship drifted silently, systems dying, his heart still burning with something he never understood before. Courage. He had seen it, felt it, and now he carried it. The reports from Earth were supposed to be routine. Simple. Predictable. At least, that's what Zirin believed when he began his mission. But since the incident on the burning space station, nothing had felt routine. The images still haunted him, humans sacrificing themselves to save others. It made no sense in Valerian logic. To risk one life for another was to invite weakness. Yet, humans did it without hesitation. He had spent nights replaying the transmissions. He even studied their faces, terrified yet determined. They knew they would die, he thought, and still they stayed. Now, as the days passed, his doubts grew louder than his orders. The Valerian Dominion High Command received his latest reports and dismissed them instantly. You've been observing too long, Agent Zirin, one superior hissed through the holographic link. Your tone sounds compromised. Compromised? Zirin asked sharply. Yes. These creatures are emotional parasites. Record their weaknesses and return. That is your mission. The transmission ended before he could respond. He sat there in the dark cockpit, the silence pressing against his ears. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans were just clever animals. But why couldn't he shake that moment? Why couldn't he forget that voice? They died saving others. That's what matters. He looked out at Earth again. A storm rolled over one of its oceans, lightning flickering across the clouds. It looked alive, fierce, chaotic, unpredictable. Just like the humans below. Later that week, another event caught his attention. A massive sandstorm on Mars had struck one of humanity's research colonies. The outpost had gone dark. Communication was lost. The Valerian protocol said to ignore such irrelevant matters, but Zirin couldn't. He tuned into the emergency frequency, intercepting human radio chatter. This is the Ares 9 command center. Our sister base is offline. Visibility near zero, winds at 300 kilometers per hour, evacuation impossible. We can't leave them there. Zirin raised a brow. They were going to attempt a rescue, in the middle of a deadly planetary storm. The colony was doomed, and yet the humans refused to accept it. He monitored their every move. Small drones launched from one station, cutting through violent winds and red dust. The visuals were chaotic, sand and lightning, machinery nearly torn apart. But inside those drones, human operators guided them with steady hands, voices calm but desperate. Drone 4 down. We're losing signal, adjust coordinates. We see movement. Survivors, 3 of them. Zirin leaned forward, eyes wide. It worked. The drones found survivors, buried, half dead but alive. The humans cheered through the static, even as one operator coughed from exhaustion. 4 hours they fought to bring those survivors home. And when the final transmission came through, the rescue ship returning to orbit, the humans on the ground erupted in relief. They had done it. They had saved their people. Zirin's claws tapped nervously against the console. In Valerian culture, no one would have risked lives for a failed colony. Resources mattered more than lives. But here, on this red world, humans risked everything for 3 people. Insanity, Zirin muttered. Complete insanity. Yet, he couldn't stop watching. That night, he opened his personal journal, something forbidden for agents on active missions. Observation 82, he recorded quietly. Humans demonstrate a level of cooperation not rooted in hierarchy or survival logic. They act from emotion, empathy, a trait seen as weakness in the Dominion. But I am beginning to question that belief. He hesitated, then added softly, perhaps emotion is their strength. The words unsettled him. He deleted the lines, stared at the blank space, and then typed it again. He couldn't erase it. Days later, the Dominion command sent him new orders. Prepare for first contact. A small fleet was heading toward Earth's system, not to invade yet, but to test human defenses. They wanted to know how much resistance to expect. Zirin felt a chill. His reports would determine whether Earth lived or died. He opened the communication channel, ready to transmit what he'd learned. But his hand froze over the console. If he told the truth, that humans were brave, united, and unpredictable, His superiors might hesitate. If he lied and described them as weak, Earth would burn. He sat there for a long time, staring at the blinking cursor. And then he did something no Valerian had ever done before. He sent no report at all. Instead, he hacked deeper into human networks, the military archives, the rescue databases, even social communications. The more he read, the more he realized something frightening. Humans weren't just brave, they were adaptable. They turned disaster into progress. They turned pain into strength. And somehow, through chaos, they kept moving forward. He watched their history, wars that nearly wiped them out only for them to rebuild stronger. He saw images of humans standing on the moon, laughing in their fragile suits, as if daring the universe to stop them. And then, in one live broadcast, he saw something that silenced him completely. A ship launched from Earth, carrying supplies for Mars. The commander spoke before liftoff. If we fall, others will rise. That's humanity. Zirin couldn't look away. Something inside him, deep, old, and hidden, began to stir. He didn't understand it yet. But he knew this: humans were not what his people believed. They were something else. Something dangerous. Something alive. Hours later, a message arrived from Dominion High Command. Agent Zirin. Report immediately. Fleet entering Sol system. Prepare for invasion assessment. His blood ran cold. He stared at Earth's glowing surface, the lights of its cities twinkling through the night. And for the first time, the alien spy whispered into the darkness. You're not weak, are you? The stars outside flickered, and deep in the void, the first shadows of the Dominion fleet began to move toward Earth. Zirin didn't know it yet, but the next choice he made would decide the fate of two civilizations.